Everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Inside the Circle with myself, Emily Defroand, and my two fabulous gold medal winning Olympians, Georgie Twigg and Nicola White. Now, today is a very special edition as we are celebrating 4 years since that famous night in Rio where the GB women's hockey team won Olympic gold for the first time in history. So girls, as it's 4 years already, I'm not sure whether it's flown by for you, but it certainly has for me. How does it feel? Is it still sinking in?
God, do you know what? It feels quite a long time ago. Does it to you, Nick?
Yeah, a long time ago.
I know. And yeah, I've kind of, coming on here, trying to think of you start to think back to that time, sort of 4 years ago. But yeah, no, it does feel quite a long time ago now.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel like you've got to really rack your brains and how did we feel and what were we at that point? And there are snippets of moments that you stick with you and a few stories, but there's a lot that you get swept along with and that just happens because it it's our job just to do it, and it becomes so normal that we just do it. And then you just sort of then forget because you're like, oh yeah, we did do that, and talk about it. So yeah, it feels such a long time ago.
I think for a hockey fan, I feel like it was just yesterday for me. So for everyone, I mean, the BBC News at 10 p.m. was cancelled, especially for you guys. 9 million people tuned in to watch you win Olympic gold. So I think for us lot, everyone will remember where we were on that famous night in Rio. But I want to pick your brains on that, obviously, in a little while. But going into the Olympics, what was the mindset about? What did you kind of believe from the get-go that this could happen? You could become Olympic champions at the end of this 2-week period.
Okay.
No, go on, Nick.
I think we'd had numerous conversations. Our preparation was so much in detail, and the way which we trained was always about winning and creating that winning mindset and around gold. We'd had the conversations time and time again, so it was almost we were expecting the best of ourselves when we got there. Obviously you don't know the outcome at the end of the day, but we had that determination and drive and belief in ourselves because we trained in that manner and we expected that of each other. So yeah, I think the outcome wasn't obviously known, but as in we put everything in place ourselves and the processes and the way we trained to give ourselves the best chance. So yeah, we've had the discussions that we knew what we wanted to do when we got there.
I think as well, you touched on it, Nick. I always remember that particularly this one meeting we had, which was a scenario-based meeting, and we discussed every single possible scenario that might happen that could almost throw us off kilter. So it was, if the bus got delayed on the way to a match, which it did, and if to such wide-ranging things, if someone had a family member that passed away, and it was all those conversations that we were just having, so that actually when you were out there, if something like that did happen, we were prepared for that. And I think having both of us having experienced 2012, you just don't know what's going to happen, and it's kind of a normal competition on a sort of much heightened scale. So being the best prepared that we could be, it gives you that confidence that you're going in, feeling completely ready. And I think that's definitely what we as a team felt when we were heading out to Rio.
Yeah, I think you could tell as well. I mean, you don't win 8 games in 8 through not being prepared. And I think you could tell, even through your style of play, every single game was different and you were prepared for that. So actually it's interesting to hear the impact of obviously the hard work that you did before you even got to Rio paid dividends. Twigs, you touched upon a bus delay. What happened there? Tell us all.
I mean, to be honest, it was a bit classic Rio. You know, we did have a few mishaps when we were out there. You know, when we arrived, the showers didn't work properly and things like that. But it was about a 40-minute drive to the hockey stadium. And obviously they'd had all these new roads put in place, you know, to help it be smooth for athletes to get to the training base. And I can't remember exactly, but I just remember the bus driver turned off. And then when we got on a road that was only a one-way road and we were going the wrong way, I kid you not, and then it stopped, and then I don't even know what happened. Can you remember, Nick? It was, and then we couldn't turn around, and it was all a bit of a, we had to go and do a big loop to get back.
We had to take this exit to come off for the stadium, and this bus driver, we were like, "Are you sure you know where you're going?" Because the bus driver just didn't seem to know where he was going, and obviously Danny at the front obviously gets sometimes a bit panicky. And he went at the front, so obviously me, Anzi, and Kate and Helen were like, "Oh, this isn't looking great." Anyway, he drove past the exit, and obviously at that point we knew that the road was not finished, and the only way to get back round was another hour journey all the way back around the whole route to continue. So anyway, he's like, no, it's fine. I'll come off at the next exit and we'll just do a thing. And it's like, no, the next exit is not finished and it's blockaded. So he's like, yeah, fine, cool. So when he came off, and then we did the whole U-turn, but it put on half an hour to the journey.
Yeah.
And the whole preparation, and Daniel was fit, and it was no speaking. It was like, okay, let's just regather as a group, and we sorted it out, and it was all cool. But the drama on the bus was like, let's just not engage.
Can you remember what match it was?
Was it a training or was it a match? I can't.
It was a match.
It was a match, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was. I can't remember who it was actually.
No. It was quite early on. I think it was quite early on because it was. The bus drivers were clearly fairly new to the route.
Yeah. It was very amusing because it was for us, we were like, well, as usual, we've done a lot of prep, so we just went with it, and we still did lots of processes and just changed. But it was just very amusing because obviously the staff got very irate and were really stressed out. So we were like, no, we're fine. We can handle it.
Cool as a cucumber. I mean, I'm not surprised, but I feel like that could have been sabotage from, I don't know what team was responsible for that bus driver, but I'm going to start that rumour now. Part of their plan to stop Team GB winning gold. But that's interesting. I've never heard of that, but yeah, quite good. But as I touched upon, obviously 8 wins from 8 throughout the tournament, and in the group stage especially, you guys have touched upon how you had very much a game by game mentality. How easy was that in terms of, Krista Cullen touched upon it in the week in saying that after that first game versus Australia, that was when she knew that you guys were going to win gold. Did you ever let yourself think about that in those group stage matches where you were consistently winning?
No, I didn't. I think we did put quite a lot of emphasis on that first game, and we knew that was quite an important game for us to kind of start that momentum going. So I think, as Krista said, it was a real sort of boost getting that win, and it was a really tough game. But yeah, no, always our mentality was game by game. And I even remember after the semi-final on the pit, obviously we were all over the moon that we've just made an Olympic final. But I remember Kate sort of getting us into a huddle, and she literally looked, I get goosebumps thinking about it. She looked around the group and she just went, one more game. And, it was so powerful because it was right, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's stick to the processes that we have been doing throughout this whole tournament. And, we could easily have been phased going into that Olympic final and, thinking about what if. And actually it wasn't that. It was, right, let's prepare for this like it's any other game. And that's what we were very good at doing, I thought.
Yeah, I honestly did not think that Australia game was, like Twiggy said, we put a lot of emphasis on that first game because you want to build that momentum and you want to start well. And And, you know, Australia in the tunnel were a bit like Holland were in the final. You know, they were really up for it and a little bit over aroused. And it was a bit of a sign to us to be like, oh, this could go either way. And on the pitch, you could just tell they were, it wasn't really Australia. They were really above and beyond, really. They were making mistakes that they wouldn't normally make. And they were almost trying too hard, and I think the pressure obviously might have just got to them, and obviously when we came away with the win, and it was a massive result for us because it set us off on our momentum. You know, we still stuck to our game, and we still, I think, deserve the win. But I'm just saying, from a performance point of view, you could just tell from they were like, we are out of the blocks and we are going to hit GB hard, and you could just tell with the way they were in the tunnel. And
well, they got quite a few cards because they were almost overly aggressive, and I think it's almost that fine line, isn't it, where you kind of need to be up for it, need to be sort of on your game, and then they almost went over it because they were sort of trying too hard.
But I didn't think at that point, there was nothing in my head at that point that thought anything about it. I just thought, brilliant, with, like, you know, tick one. And now it's put us in a good place, and now we should have confidence from that to go on to the next one. Like I don't think I'm the type of person to get so swept away, because I don't think I'm that type of person.
It's interesting to hear, isn't it? And as well, you've touched upon obviously that the importance of that Australia game, and actually the momentum that gave you, and maybe the Aussies didn't necessarily control their adrenaline as well as you guys in that first Olympic game. But on the pitch, you obviously seem very level-headed. Now, the Olympic Games, it is the biggest sporting event in the world. Obviously, you hear lots of stories about how amazing the Olympic Village experience is. So, especially in those first few days of the tournament, say, where you are building that momentum game by game, how was the vibe in the village between the squad?
I think, you know, we went out to Rio quite early, so we were actually one of the first sports out in the village, and I think that was for a reason, because you know, for those that had never been in an Olympic village, it is quite a unique thing, and it's exciting, and there's lots going on, and you know, and the Rio village was ginormous. It was sort of a 10-15 minute walk to the dining hall, so you know, Danny said specifically, like, those first 2 days we were out in Rio, go and explore, go and enjoy yourselves. But then actually from day 3 onwards, we're in professional Olympic mode, you know, training, getting ready for that first game. So actually, once the tournament started, we were so sort of settled in effectively, and it was just like any other tournament. And, you know, we all had our sort of routines in terms of every morning we would all go to breakfast together, and then after breakfast we'd all group in the stretching area, do some stretching, and then also air any thoughts. So we had quite a good way of, Kate sort of said, right, has anyone got any niggles, or, you know, wants to discuss anything, just so that nothing was then simmering under the surface. And we kind of had this routine that we literally did every day. So actually, you know, after game 1, it was kind of, right, we're here now. It's quite good. We're in the tournament. Let's go.
And the routine of you know, staying together even off the pitch in the village. For meal times, I can imagine that's a big factor. Nick, I can only imagine the Olympic village food and the meals were top notch. Can you confirm?
Confirmed. Yeah. Do you know what? Like the food hall, it has such a variety of food in there, and it is ginormous, like Twiggy said. So those that have already been to an Olympics or a Commonwealth Games or a multi-sport event will already have an understanding of what it's like, and understand that you need to almost prep before you go in. So you need to have an idea of what you want to have that evening, because when it's busy and you get all the teams in there that have finished competing, you could be queuing for like 10 or 15 minutes for each station. So you go and queue and get like your chicken, And then by the time you've queued and got your vegetables or something else afterwards, your chicken's cold. So you need to have an idea of what you want, so you can literally go straight to the station that you want, because it can get really busy. But yeah, the food's great in there, and you just need to not go too far away from what you have, because if you do, your performance diet's just ruined. So, we have our own snacks that we take anyway. So a lot of people take them to the dining room. But there's enough there that you can still stick to relatively, they're well catered. So, we're well looked after when we're there. There's a whole host of things to have.
You're listening to Inside the Circle with Emily Defroand, Georgie Twigg and Nicola White.
As you touched upon, I guess routine was probably very important, especially throughout the 2 weeks. Like Twiggs, you touched upon, that hockey event itself starts on pretty much the first day and doesn't end until the last. So the routines that you pick up training at Bisham, for example, on the pitch, like your set plays and everything like that, that's your routine that you carry through, your training routine, your food routine. Really, really interesting, and it obviously paid dividends, especially at the back end of the tournament. So as the history makers in reaching Team GB's first ever Olympic final, so we've only won bronze twice, 92, and obviously both yourself in London 2012. What did that moment in making history in reaching our first ever hockey final mean to you both?
Well, to be honest, I was all a bit phased because I obviously got hit in the semi-final. So actually, I was very emotional. I had a really weird reaction after the semi-final because I think I remember crying after the semi-final. My mum being like, "Georgie, are you okay? Like, what's wrong?" And I was like, I think I'm just overcome with emotions. It had been one of those games where so many things had happened. Like, honestly, there'd been 4 injuries. And then I was still a bit unclear as to what was going on with my jaw, and I had to go and have scans afterwards. So probably that was quite a good distracting thing for me, because it was like, right, let's just go make sure, there was no question that I would be playing in that final, 100%. But yeah, so it was probably quite a good distraction for me, really, in looking back. But again, as you said, we kind of had to stick to what we'd been doing and taking each game as it came. And that semi-final we played was quite late, and I think most of us didn't sleep very well that night, because obviously there'd just been like such a buzz, and thankfully we had a day the next day to kind of, so most of us, I shared a room with Unzi, and we always would do a nap in the afternoon, particularly after sort of a late game where you've not slept that much. So yeah, so there was, there's a buzz about the group.
Yeah. And what was that day, Nick? Like the day after the semi-final, in between the final, how was it in terms of, did you kind of let it sink in, the magnitude that what you've achieved in reaching the Olympic final, or did you very much stay in the same mindset of, let's just get through the next day, the next day, the next day?
I don't think actually much changed, if I'm right, Twiggy. Like, I think, although there was, like she said, like there was a bit more of a buzz around, everyone was just super excited, because, like, for me, the disappointment of not making the final at 2012, like, for me, when I went to bed when we got back to the rooms and then went to bed on the night of the semi-final, like, I had that in my head. Like, I'd had the disappointment of that, and almost like a flashback to that moment of what happened and how distraught we were, and it's like, it's a horrible thing to lose out, and that thing that you chase for so long, and it was just like gone. And then contrast to them, and it was like, well, we've got a chance at it. Like, the dream is alive, and we're going for gold. It was almost like, oh my God, we're going for gold. Like, it's here, the moment we've all been waiting for. So, but I think the next day it was, all of those excitement. I think it was almost just the same thing. We got up, we went for breakfast, we had our chat. I think we trained, did we not? I think we went and did I don't think we did pool
Did I do
recovery.
some corners maybe? I can't remember.
We went and did some light training.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do pool recovery, where we can sometimes then meet our family as well. But we didn't do a pool recovery that day. I think we did training.
Right.
But yeah, it felt a similar day where we just got up and cracked on and prepared the same and went through all our video and tactics for the Netherlands. And that was just exciting because you're in the last game, all the tactics are there, and you're sort of thinking, this is it. Like this is like now Danny's moment to shine. Here we go. Come on.
I think as well we played Holland so many times, and we knew that we could beat them. Obviously, we had done the year before at the Euros, but we knew how good they were. So we knew that we had to be on our absolute top A game. So there was that familiarity of sort of preparing for it. But again, we knew a lot about them, and always when it came to those so quarterfinal, semi-final and final, those that might be taking a shuttle would be preparing for that. So watching any video of the Dutch goalie, and then Maddie would be doing her preparation as well. So it was always that added bit that before any game where it could go to penalties, there was that added preparation as well.
Yeah, it's interesting how you said, obviously you'd played Holland in the big games, especially the year previously at the Home Europeans. I don't know whether this is controversial to ask, but do you think that's a psychological advantage going into that final in Rio, where you'd beaten them 1 year previously? Actually, was that in their head, do you think?
I think Holland didn't like playing us. I think they found us, because I think Holland will always have confidence, as they are the world's best team at the moment, and with historically having won 2 gold medals prior to Rio. So I think there wasn't probably any doubt from them in terms of sort of confidence going in, knowing that they're a good team. But I'm sure that they were sort of thinking, we can get tripped up by them. And you will have watched it. The game was, at points we were sort of not hanging on, but it was sort of, they did have large spells of possession. But as soon as the final whistle went for at the end of normal play, I remember Kate running past going, yes, we've got this. And you looked across at the Dutch players and they were genuinely devastated that they hadn't won in normal time. And the coach had her head in her hands. And at that point of I knew we were going to win. It sounds so easy to say, but genuinely the difference in body language between the two teams when that final whistle went was quite unbelievable. And so certainly at that point, I think our historical wins against them in penalties was paying dividends, definitely, come that sort of psychological battle in the final.
And as well, obviously you guys, well, as I said, obviously winning the year before against Holland in the final of the Europeans, but also coming back twice in the final to actually take the game to shuffles in itself. Nick, obviously you scored that final all-important goal. Actually, do you think that as well, the added grit and determination that you guys shown in defending for your lives, but actually still staying in that game and managing to get the game back not just once but twice to take the game to shuffles? Again, do you think that was a sign that it was meant to be?
I think Twiggy's done really well. I think they just know that we have a never say die attitude, and we fight and fight and fight and just don't give up. We hound them, we respect them, and we give them the respect that they're great players. But then so are we, and we have a culture and an ethos and a belief that we will not give up and we will keep fighting. And I think they know that, and that we had worked so hard on our corners, and we'd worked so hard on converting goals. We'd worked so hard on numerous aspects of our play, but when we got that corner that I scored from for the third goal, and it was only like 8 minutes to go, I think. It was almost like, this is the moment. And I almost had goosebumps when we got that corner, because I remember like Kate and others running up being like, this is it.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else felt it, but I was almost like, I think this is the moment, because they'd had a lot of pressure, and we'd just managed to get like a bit of a breakaway, and we had a little bit of a spell. And I was like, this is the accumulation of what, this is going to be our chance. And all those hours that we put into practice and we perform under pressure and we have to execute, like, this is now the chance. And I don't think I've ever been on so much red alert as I was on that corner, because my eyes felt like they were on fire. I was like, I have to, if the ball comes anywhere near me in 20 meters, I will put the ball in the net. Like, I was just on edge. And it was a bit of a melee, but as soon as I saw that ball drop, it was like slow motion. Like, it was almost like, no, and the ball fell, and all the Dutch players were like, where is it? And I was like, why is no one clearing it? And then I just was like, am I actually going to score this? And then when it scored, I was like, we've just leveled it. Yeah. We are going to go to shuffles, because I know that there's no way we're going to let this go. We are definitely going to let this go to shuffles or get another goal to win it. And then like Twiggy summed up, the fact that they knew we'd brought it back, and that it was almost like, to them, that was like a loss. That was like, you know what, we've almost lost the game now. A draw is a loss to them. It just summed it up in the way they reacted. And so even in our, for example, even in our fitness, when we had like Ben Rosenblatt, he'd always be like, chest up, like, don't bend over, like, keep walking, like, run it off, like, running at half time, like, all these little things that we've done. And after that final whistle went, that's exactly what we did. We all jogged in and we came together. It was all positive. And then it creates like, it just creates that momentum going into the shuffles of, if you look at them, they're all down and negative, and then we're just like, nope, we're on it. Like, and for those penalty takers, it creates so much confidence to say, we're right behind you, we've got this. So I think just all things that we've done over so many years, it just sort of comes through at those right times, because you've trained it.
Yeah, and you touched upon, obviously, that little win in terms of the body language at the end of the game. You both touched upon it. And I mean, speaking from a fan's point of view, if you were, looking at the 9 million people back home, watching it in their living rooms, like, I had a pillow over my face, I couldn't watch it. But you guys looked so calm, looked so composed. And as two athletes, obviously watching in the shootout, how was that to control your nerves? What was your heart beating like no tomorrow?
Mine was, because just to give you a bit of insight, so we had a group of 7 of us that were training to take them, and we didn't know who the 5 were going to be. So we decided that it would just be a case of Danny would choose his 5 and ask each person, and each person had the right to say no. So, for example, if you'd had a bit of a dodgy game and you weren't feeling that confident, and we'd like discussed about, that's absolutely fine to say no. So I was in that 7 that were, so there was a chance. And because previously I had taken them in sort of the Euros and Commonwealths, obviously, completely, I'd missed the one in the European final. So I think, that was the last time I'd taken one in a tournament. And obviously he then decided to go with Holly, who had never taken one, but obviously then the goalies had never seen her take one. So, that's a real positive. So standing on the 25-yard line with the team for like the first time was such a different experience for me. And it was so nerve-wracking, honestly. And there's a few pictures where, when sort of Helen scored that stroke and we were all like, yes, like punching, because it was almost, that was a way of us getting that nervous energy out. But also you are trying to be like quite cool and calm, because you're having to be that for those 5 that are going to be taking sheet has and for Maddie and stuff. So you're trying to sort of give this aura of like calmness, but inside, honestly, your heart is like pounding.
It's one of those. Would it be controversial to say that you'd probably actually prefer to be one of the 5 taking it?
I think I would have done, yeah, definitely. But just from it, because it's then a little bit more in your control. You know, it's like parents saying watching your child play is just the worst thing. I can imagine it's a bit like that, really.
And I guess for the guys that were taking it, little did they know behind them, they had a row of their teammates absolutely, you know, balling themselves in nerves. But you touch upon, obviously, you'd prefer to be on the pitch and in control compared to your poor family, all in the stands. Nick, how do you think your mum was feeling in that Olympic final?
Oh, bless them, all the parents. I mean, yeah, so like Twiggy said, I've done both. So I've taken and I've been on the halfway line. And I know what you mean. Like, it's when you're taking, you're sort of in control. So you're just there in the moment. You've got something to focus on. When you're not in control, when you're the parents, you just literally like, you don't know what's going to happen, so you can't take it. Your nerves just get the better of you. And the poor parents in the stands, I mean, you know, they're just willing their children to obviously do their best, but they don't know whether they're going to pick up pieces and it's going to be on the bad end, or they don't know whether they're going to be celebrating. So they're just in this limbo. But the fact that they're there is just incredible for all of us. So we all knew where they were. This little crowd of blue, red and white in a sea of orange. Yeah, it was amazing.
You can listen to Inside the Circle, the podcast, on iTunes, Apple Music, YouTube, and all other good podcast providers.
Yeah, so I guess, you know, what Nick said in terms of our parents being out in Rio, you know, they'd all been part of that journey of us getting to that moment. So it was so special that they were all out there with us and able to celebrate. And the really nice thing was that, you know, Nick and I were very lucky. Our parents and family had gone out for the whole 2 weeks. But the nice thing as well was that after, you know, we got into the quarterfinals, more people started flying out. And so I remember, I think it was like Brave's parents had only come out for the first week, went home and then had to fly back out again.
Oh.
And then Unzi's had started dating this new guy who is now her long-term boyfriend, and he flew out just for the final. So we knew he was a keeper. So it was really nice because there was this huge sort of GB fans in the stands. And also, actually, you'll laugh, my mum got into a little bit of a frack with one of the Dutch fans because she was saving seats for all of the parents, and they came to sit down and she was like, no, this is for GB. Then they made a comment about how they were going to win. Oh. And she, being really cocky, and she turned around and was like, hang on, who won in the Europeans last year?
Yes, Captain Twigg!
So I think it was getting quite heated in the stands between all the fans.
I did hear in the crowd it was getting a bit heated with the parents and the Dutch fans, and there was a bit,
Brilliant.
I don't know what was going on, but I was like, behave.
Oh, it sounds like we were not only winning on the hockey pitch, but we were in the stands.
Yeah.
Tom Mares.
Tom Mares on the drums.
In the full Union Jack outfit, looking the part. I mean,
we could definitely hear him, that's for sure. Because normally when you're playing, you can't, you zone out completely. But at times you could definitely hear that, and it was quite nice because like it gives a bit of some familiarity that you can hear someone cheering for you, because there's a lot of Dutch fans in that stadium. So it was quite nice that you knew if you hear the drums, it was us. It was like, that's for us.
and I can imagine the noise created in the stands by the GB supporters, family, friends only was heightened at that final shuffle from Holly Fernweb. When did it sink in after that moment the ball hit the net? When did it sink in that actually we've made history here, we're Olympic champions?
God, I mean, it was such a blur, wasn't it, Nick? It really was. Obviously we all ran in, and then I think I remember running then to Maddie because she was obviously out on the side, and then obviously we got to all see all our parents and stuff afterwards. And I think the medal ceremony was very, very special. Having the British anthem was spine tingling. It really was, and that's kind of was definitely a moment where we were like, well, it certainly hit me. But then I remember afterwards, we went and saw all the parents and all the fans that were there, and then we went into the changing rooms. And Nick, you were getting drug tested, weren't you?
Yeah, I was about to bring this up. And be like,
Nick was getting drug tested. So, and we had, Nick, you can talk about it, but it was those that were in the changing room, we then had to wait. And it was like that moment of, so, we sat down. I remember I got my phone out, and obviously it had gone mental. And it was a little bit of a time of reflection, that sort of calm moment, because obviously afterwards, when we got back to the village, it was crazy, and then we went out and everything. But yeah, Nick, you can talk about the the drug test though.
So I don't know what happened, because I was presuming everyone was in the changing room with champagne, and I was saying to the drug testers, "You're ruining my celebrations. Everyone is going to be in there with champagne, and I'm here, and I've got nobody with me." In fact, I did have Towner, because Towner was getting drug tested as well. But yeah, like Twiggy said though, with the whole celebration thing on the podium, that is the moment where you can reflect, because obviously it's silence other than the flag going up and the anthem and stuff. So you actually get a moment to just go, oh my God, it's actually happened. They're playing our anthem. And I don't know if everyone was in tears, but I certainly was, and could not sing because I was blubbing. And we were all holding hands, and it was an amazing moment because it started to sink in then, the enormity of what's just happened. But yeah, when I came off and got that tap, I was like, no, absolutely not. And
Nikki's known for taking a long time with the drug tester. She's not.
I don't know if it halted anything or not, but I was devastated because from that moment on, I was like, I'm gonna have, because I'm not a drug tester. It took ages. For anyone that knows, got numerous drug testing stories, but we won't go into that. So I don't know what happened. I thought I was missing out on champagne, and I was sat by myself with Lida Vivelton and Towner got done quite quick. They did give me a bit, to be fair.
And then from the drugs testers.
Yeah. And then I literally came out just before everyone had done their hair a bit and makeup for the podium. I literally came out, and I think I shoved the stuff on we had to wear for the podium, and then went on to get changed for it, and then I had to go back and finish off drug testing because I hadn't finished.
I remember we had to wait for you before we went back to the village.
To wait for me. So yeah, I'm really sorry to the whole team. I don't know what happened.
The reality of Olympic champions, obviously. You missed some of the celebration. Then you felt like you get paid back by delaying everyone else's celebrations.
I know.
But no doubt,
Nick, hurry up. We have some partying to do. I was like, aren't we?
I'm sure you guys didn't waste too much time though in celebrating once you were done and dusted, though, Nick. No doubt about it.
Yeah, there was numerous options to join in on, so
I can imagine. And obviously, once you got back to the village, and I can imagine you were on absolute cloud nine. What was that feeling like? Did you have any other Team GB athletes come up to you, congratulate you?
Because we've been in the village for so long, and actually because we were always seen as if you asked anyone else, they were always like, oh, the hockey girls. And I think, we did know a lot of the Team GB staff, and actually we spoke to quite a lot of the other sports as well. So when we went and did our pool recovery at the Team GB house on our days off, for example, all the tennis players were there all the time, so we'd spoken a lot to them, and actually it was really nice because when we came back, if you went into the physio room, everyone clapped. It was a really, really special, because you're all part of it. It is with this whole one Team GB, and actually quite a few of the GB athletes had come to watch us. So I remember the men's rowing team turned up in their GB dressing gowns. So that was all they were wearing.
Yeah, they did.
So yeah, it was amazing. And you know, I think we'd done the same, you know, when we'd seen other athletes throughout the 2 weeks. And I guess because we were right at the end of the games, and there'd been that like building momentum, and people had got sort of into watching our games. It was really, really nice to kind of come back and see everyone.
Yeah, that's the nicest bit about being at the end, isn't it? Because most sports have finished. Some have left actually, but lots of sports have finished.
Yeah.
So a lot of eyes are on, other than athletics. I think marathon might be quite late as well, but athletics as well. A lot of eyes are on you, and you get a lot of like the support. And so when you get back, you get a bit of a cheer, and they're all saying, "We watched you," and like when you're leaving for the game, they're all going, "Good luck." And so it's really lovely that, you know, you've been supporting them, because obviously for them their final could be a lot earlier, and you're watching them, but they're not equally the favours returned, and there's a lot of camaraderie around your little section of your Team GB living accommodation. And yeah, when we got back, there was a lot of obviously games going on and things.
So obviously the support that you were receiving, obviously in the athletes village as from the Team GB athletes, but also I haven't touched upon it, but you all agreed on a social media silence throughout the games. And actually for an outsider from the start, that was kind of an intent of Team GB women's hockey team mean business. And this was powerful, but obviously you were completely oblivious to all the euphoria that was happening at home. Were you aware of what you'd created and the noise that you'd created around the team, the sport back home?
No, we had no idea, like genuinely no idea. And I think probably that evening we all turned on our phones and had a look, and almost you couldn't see everything because it was sort of, there was so much going on. But no, and you know, that was a really conscious decision by us before the games, and I think it was a brilliant one, because nowadays with social media, I mean, obviously we did well, so probably there was a lot of positive stuff, but you know, in an Olympic Games, if you get on your phone after a match and you might not have played well, and you've got a couple of comments where, "Oh, Twiggy didn't play well today," you know, that you don't know how that can affect you and your confidence. So I think it was really important for us that there was that whole team buy-in to you know, we don't need social media during the games. And you know, we'd had it up when we first arrived in Rio, so those couple of days that I'd said where we were able to explore, you know, we could post a few photos of having arrived in Rio, but then we got a cut-off date, and yeah, I think, you know, we just couldn't afford to have been so prepared and then for something to throw someone off kilter. It just wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth the risk.
Yeah, totally agree. It's almost like we had numerous conversations, because obviously there's a big group of us, and there's a lot of different opinions on, well, not a lot, but there's different opinions on whether people want to or don't want to be on it. But we wanted to try and come up with a decision one way or another. And I guess the bottom line is, what's the purpose of being on it? Like, at the end of the day, we're there to do a job. We're there to win gold. Like Twiggy said, we put all the preparation work in, and for one stupid comment, or for one journalist, or for one story, or you know, they could be rooting through your social media, your Facebook pages, and bring a photo of your Loughborough uni from 2006 on a night out. You know, they could be doing anything, and it will completely shatter what you've been preparing for. And at the end of the day, we're not there to promote ourselves or get anything from the game. We're there to be with each other and give out all for the team. So it was almost when that I think this is from my point of view, like when that realization hit, actually, yeah, we're there to do that job. We're not there for any self-promotion. We're not there to build anything ourselves. We can do that afterwards, but the results will speak for themselves. We can do our best, and afterwards then we can enjoy, and then we can build our social media presence and that kind of thing. So I think from that point onwards, we were all like, yeah, I'm really happy to find that, because it means we're focusing solely on the performance.
It sounds like
it was a treat. I think people have learned from that now because other people are doing it.
Yeah, I was going to say that, and actually in making that bold decision, it did work a treat, and it was probably a blessing in disguise, because little did you guys know, you were on every newspaper, front and back, you know, the noise was being created as that, you know, momentum was built throughout the tournament, and actually you guys being able to narrow your mindset in terms of just focus purely on yourselves probably was a blessing in disguise. But for me, I always remember that moment where you landed back at Heathrow and you were on BBC News live, and it was just watching you guys walk down off of the plane, and you obviously had all of the media taking photos, filming, everything like that. Was that the moment where you were like, blimey, what have we achieved here?
Yeah, that was insane. I think, to be fair, I think that was the moment, wasn't it, Twiggy, where I think we went, oh, right, okay.
Well, and then we went on to the One Show as well. It was like straight from Heathrow. And genuinely, we were exhausted. Like, I can't tell you. I think after the One Show, I was like crawling back to our flat, like genuinely, because obviously we'd like sort of won. Then we had 3 nights after our final, so we'd been out the first 2 nights we'd gone out. The last night was the closing ceremony, but during the day we'd also had all like media commitments, which were all great. So you're still going. Then we'd had the flight where we'd obviously just drank champagne for sort of most of it, tried to get a couple of hours sleep, and then we'd landed, and then there's all this, and you're still going, and you're smiling, and you're chatting, and then literally you get home and you're like, oh my God, I'm so tired.
Home.
Can't do anything else.
No, it was amazing. It was so good because they were like, right, we've got a helicopter following the gold tip BA plate. It's like, a what? A helicopter filming us landing at Heathrow. It was like, right, and how many people are watching this? And it was just like, what has happened? And then we came into Heathrow, and obviously that was amazing with the cameras.
That was lovely, yeah.
You'd have people coming up to you being like, oh my God, we watched the hockey. And it's like what? And then obviously, we'd switched our phones on by then, so we've had all the messages and things through. And then you start, like Twiggy said, you get the messages through, like, can you come on this show? Can we do this interview? Can we give you this? We'd love to give you this as a present. You're thinking, like, have I just completely missed what's happening for the whole 2 weeks? But I think the BA plane thing was the first moment where it was like, right, this is serious. I mean, we did try and get ourselves upgraded to first class. However, the rowers did pull out the height card, which is just...
No, we couldn't have first class because there were too many of us, Nick.
I know, but we were trying. They used the height card against us.
Yeah, but also the funny thing is that basically where we then sat, everyone came to us.
Yeah.
I guess the thing is as well is that most other sports are individual sports. So, everyone that was in first class who had won a gold medal was sort of there by themselves, Max Whitlock, any of the rowers. Yeah. And then we were there in sort of business or economy plus. And, there's 18 girls drinking champagne, chatting, excited. So suddenly, like, all of the other sports sort of gravitated towards where we were. And it was great fun.
Yeah, we had quite a good little cabin. We had like premium economy, like a little cabin, didn't we? Area.
Yeah.
And Sam and Unzi dressed up as air hostesses. And
oh yes, they did.
Champagne, and yeah, it was really good fun.
I saw photos of that, of the newly recruited BA air hostesses. How did that come about?
It was a tough recruitment process, but they passed in flying colours apparently. No, the staff were just great. As soon as we boarded the plane, they were just like, congratulations, feel free to roam wherever you want. There's no class. So, go and mingle. There's champagne here. And yeah, it was just almost like a free-for-all all over the plane. But I think people were so tired as well that some people actually wanted to sleep.
Yeah.
Like people genuinely weren't knackered. But there's just a lot of excitement. So yeah, for us, we were the rowdy cabin. I think people knew that from the off.
So you heard it here first that the GB women's hockey team were the rowdy bunch on the BA flight home. Obviously, the life and soul of that flight and that party. But you touched upon, obviously, the media fiasco in terms of you had so much attention, so many requests, obviously, asking you to go on TV shows, radio interviews, everything. And you obviously had a lot of admirers. And two names that crop up to me are Claire Balding and Colin Murray, both obviously very well-known, self-confessed Team GB fangirls. Can anyone give me any more information how that came about and what happened there?
Well,
I'm not sure.
No, and I to this day I know there's been a lot.
Talking about the spotty thing.
Well, Claire Balding always, she was fantastic, absolutely brilliant, and as you said, was a big supporter of ours. And I mean, I can't. Again, I've seen a few people talking about it, about the WhatsApp and her ending up on our team WhatsApp. And I just remember. I mean, I can't even remember when it was or what night it was.
Personality of the year.
Ah, okay. And she just wrote. I remember waking up to a message on the group being like, "I've made the team."
Yeah. So unfortunately, so both of us weren't there at the after party. I don't think.
Yeah. No.
So I went to the after party of Sports Personality, but there was an after party at the rooftop that Claire Balding obviously said she took them to. But I was so tired, so I went home thinking, I can't stay out this late. And that's when WhatsApp Gate happened. She got recruited. But obviously I woke up to the news of that and was like, this is amazing.
Obviously, from your success, you gained a huge number of admirers back home, and obviously Claire Balding, Colin Murray, amongst just a few. But you've recently been voted the second best British women's sporting moment by a BBC poll, and also in the top 10 of the Great Britain's greatest moments of a summer Olympic Games. So two pretty cool accolades to be voted into. Obviously, as we've touched upon, it's been 4 years, but you're still being remembered for your successes in Rio. How does that kind of feel to yourself?
I think, Oh, go on, Nick.
I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? Because it means that the performances spoke for themselves. It's memorable. Like even you've said, you're a hockey player, but the fact that people that maybe didn't play hockey and that tuned in to the BBC on that night were inspired and remembered, and it was obviously just a performance that stood out, because there's always, a bit like when I was inspired as a child, there's always something that grabs your attention. So it's obviously just stuck with people, the enormity of what it was, the story behind it, whether it's women, the team aspect, whatever it is about it, it's obviously just grabbed their attention. So the fact that it still lives on and it's inspired people, and people are still holding it close to their hearts and going, no, do you know what, this is a powerful moment, and I want to talk about it. It's amazing for us, because at the end of the day, we just love training. It's our job. We love it. We're privileged to do it, but it's the norm for us. This is what we do. So the fact that people appreciate it and celebrating it is amazing for us. So yeah, it feels an absolute honour that it gets voted to those kind of ranks.
And what about you, Twiggy? The same?
Yeah, no, the same. And I think the nice thing as well is that particularly like for me, who's not involved in the international stuff now, it's nice to sometimes, life moves at such a fast pace, and then to sometimes just sit back and reflect on those moments. And we're very lucky that the thing that was so special about the team out in Rio and the squad was how close we all were as a team and as a squad. And like this week, we're having a Rio reunion. So, we try and do that every year. And hopefully we'll be doing it when we're all old grannies, because it is so special, and it is nice to get together and celebrate, what was a fantastic achievement and moment in our lives. So yeah, no, it does feel very special.
I've got one request on behalf of myself, on behalf of the whole nation. On your 4-year anniversary of the Rio gold medal, please make sure that you have a few bottles of wine on me. I think is very deserved to celebrate in style.
Thanks.
Yeah, I've got you back, don't worry. But in all seriousness, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure reliving what was a history-making moment for yourself, for our sport. I firmly believe, as a fan back then, and obviously in a fortunate position that I'm in now as an international hockey player, you have changed the future of our sport for the better. You will always be gone down in history as absolute heroes in my eyes. So thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate you joining us on this very special edition of Inside the Circle. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Em.
Thank you.
Once again, a huge thank you to Nick and Georgie for joining us for a very special episode of Inside the Circle, the podcast, and for reflecting on what many will believe is one of the greatest British sporting moments of all time. A huge thank you as well to Emily Defroand for guest presenting and fitting into the role beautifully. I think she may have a career in the media once her hockey days are over. Inside the Circle will be back with a new episode in a few weeks' time. And in the meantime, make sure you subscribe on all of your usual podcast providers.